안녕하십니까. 반갑습니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome.
예, 저는 한국사회가치연대기금의 이사장을 맡고 있는 송경용이라고 합니다. 한국 최초로 설립된 도매기금인 한국사회가치연대기금이 사회적 금융의 혁신을 선도하고 있는 각국의 파트너들과 함께 준비한 GSEF2021 포스트 코로나 시대 사회적 금융의 역할과 미래 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 코로나19 상황으로 인해 멕시코에서 여러분을 직접 뵙지 못하고 이렇게 온라인으로 진행하게 되었습니다. 우선 전 세계 각국에서 우리 세션을 시청하고 계신 여러분들께 감사의 인사를 드리고 싶습니다. 오늘 세션은 안내해드린 대로 줌을 통해 진행되고 있습니다. 또 GSEF 2021 홈페이지와 GSEF 페이스북 페이지인 GSEF 오피셜에서도 라이브로 방영되고 있습니다. 팬데믹으로 인해 우리 사회는 급격한 전환을 겪고 있습니다. 코로나는 특별히 사회 안전망 밖에 있는 취약계층과 영세 소상공인의 커다란 피해를 준 반면에 전 세계적으로 실행된 재정 완화 정책으로 인해 주식과 부동산 같은 자산 시장은 큰 폭으로 상승해서 경제적 불평등, 양극화가 심화되고 있습니다. 또한 Untitled 플랫폼 경제가 팬데믹 기간 중에 더욱 가속화되어 불안정 고용 노동자들이 증가하고 이들의 노동 환경 악화 문제 또한 커다란 사회 이슈로 대두되고 있습니다. 이런 상황에서 사회적 금융은 팬데믹에 대응해 어떤 노력을 기울여왔고 또 전환의 시대에 어떤 미래 전략을 수립하고 있는지 함께 사례를 공유하고 논의해보는 자리를 마련했습니다. 임팩트 투자, 윤리적 은행, 협동조합 기금, 마이크로 파이낸스, 자조금융 등 다양한 형태로 개별 국가에서 활동하는 기관, 대륙 기반 네트워크, 그리고 글로벌 네트워크 등 다양한 수준에서 활동하는 사회적 경제 기관을 초청했습니다. 오늘 세션을 함께해 주실 분들을 소개하겠습니다. 우선 한국지역자활센터협회 전국주민협동연합회 유유미 회장님 모셨습니다. 전국주민협동연합회는 지난해 10월 한국의 24개 사회적 금융기관과 함께 발족한 네트워크인 사회적 금융 포럼의 회원기관이기도 합니다. 아시아 벤처 자선 네트워크의 AVPN의 패션 로 대표가 오셨습니다. 유럽 윤리적 은행 네트워크의 프로젝트 매니저인 Gianluca 씨 오셨고요. 그라민 뱅크로 잘 알려져 있는 그라민 Agricultural Credit Foundation의 다이렉터인 필리페 씨 나오셨습니다. 국제협동조합 네트워크 ICA의 Development Program Coordinator인 실비아 님이 오셨습니다. 자, 이제 시작하기 전에 오늘 참여해 주신 여러분들께서 각 1분씩 자신을 소개해 주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다. 먼저 우리 유유미 대표님부터 소개해 주시기 바랍니다. 여러분들께 드리는 시간은 1분입니다.
I will give you all 1 minute each. Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to meet you through the Zoom platform. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
잘 들립니다. 예.
Yes, we can hear you. If it were not for the pandemic, I think we would have been in Mexico for the GSEF summit. But here we are online participating in the GSEF2021 workshop session. So we are the self-group cooperative, and we are working for the low-income group in our local area. So we are going to introduce how and what kind of activities we're doing and what kind of activities we will be able to do. So I'd like to discuss about those. Thank you very much.
우리 AVPN의
Next, AVPN, Ms. Patsy Lu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, and good day to everybody online. I am Patsian, and I am right now dialing into Zoom from Singapore. I'm the Chief of Staff of AVPN, and we are the largest Asian social investor network in the world, and we are very excited to be here to be sharing a bit more about our perspective about how the social investment and social finance efforts can come together in a post-pandemic environment. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Gianluca Casparini, Project Manager of Sevilla.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gianluca Gasparini. I work for FEBEA, which is the European Federation of Ethical Banks and Financiers. And I'm very happy to be here with this group in order to discuss the effects of the pandemic in the social economy. And I really look forward to sharing ideas with you. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다. 다음은 우리 그라민뱅크의
Thank you very much. From Grameen Bank, Mr. Philippe Guichandu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Philippe Guichandu. I'm based in Paris. I'm French, a French citizen, and I'm the head of inclusive finance development at the Foundation Grameen Crédit Agricole that has been created by the Grameen Trust from Bangladesh and the Crédit Agricole, the bank, one of the largest banks in France. And I will mainly share with you, the analysis we do of the impact of the crisis on microfinance institutions all around the world, because we did some quite intensive studies about it. And I'm very pleased, and thanks a lot for GSEF to invite me to be part of this panel. Thanks.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. Apologies for making sound. Next, I would like to ask Ms. Sylvia Chavon, Development Program Coordinator of ICA. Could you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, hello. Thank you, GSEF, for this invitation, and I'm really glad to be here with all of you. I'm indeed Sylvia Chavon, and I'm the Program Coordinator at the International Cooperative Alliance. We are based in Brussels, in Belgium, representing the cooperative movement worldwide. And I'm here to present you briefly the impact fund that ICA is developing for the cooperative movement. Happy to further discuss later on.
예, 고맙습니다. 자, 우리가 이제 시간이
Thank you very much. Now, because of time constraint, we'll move directly right into the presentation. The first presentation will be given by Managing Director Yu Mi, and it's going to be delivered by Managing Yu Mi from the 주민협동회 Federation. I will give 10 minutes for each speaker. And if any questions, I would like to ask the audience to leave your questions on the Zoom chat room, the chat window, or then we can collect the questions and discuss it during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to introduce to you some of the activities we do at the 주민 행복회 Federation. So basically, our aim is to allow the residents to be able to operate the organization themselves and also to be able to finance themselves as well. So we are based on a cooperative way. So we don't have an interest rate, but nonetheless, we do sometimes give loans, small micro loans of up to maybe 3% of interest. And so it could be somewhere between 100,000 Korean won to maybe 1 million Korean won. And so we have about 40 right now. And so we've been giving credit loans in the local regions. And because we are a cooperative, we also provide training and education around the country to the different residents. So we provide a variety of different activities, and we also provide community-based transactions between the residents as well. So this comes from 2020. So once again, the accumulative investment is amounting to about 4.2 million in US dollars, and the cumulative loans would amount to about 7.5 million US dollars. So we've been around for about 10 years. And so once again, it's a cooperative economy that is formed and operated by the low-income citizens. So we basically don't want to rely on large banks. We want a variety of different social enterprises and also actors in the social economy and those who are in difficulty to get loans from our organization. And so we have fund management amounting to about 2 million US dollars. And in loans, about 1 million US dollars. And so once again, we focus on the low income classes. And so we once again have been giving microloans to a variety of different residents. And so we are managing a community fund of about 380,000 in US dollars. And once again, the fund actually comes from the residents themselves, which means the repayment rate is quite high, at about 95%. And so we don't want to come up with any kind of external reliance. And so under a COVID-19 pandemic, we are providing some self-help activities.
So every year, 12,000 won is paid and medical treatment cost will be covered. So at first it was covered for dental treatments because people who are underprivileged have a lot of dental problems. However, we have not been able to expand it further out. So first, we have focused on providing medical expenses. So now about 5,269 members have been receiving the medical expenses support. So that's about 10%. And this year, we're going to expand the support. So it's going to be connected to hospitals. And a lot of active activities will be provided. So now we're going to expand these efforts to the local area and communities. We're going to expand the activities further out. So I think Korea has a very good mutual aid spirit. So we are making use of that spirit, and we are trying to create more jobs further on. And also we are going to provide some services that could fight against capitalist forces. So in the COVID-19 era, we have prepared some business strategies. So we're going to prepare some more social economy organizations so that the underprivileged could also become the agents of changes in these efforts. We're going to promote more joint projects. We are building solidarity with other social economy areas and organizations such as social finance organizations. And we have also decided to pool about 1 billion Korean won to provide relief finance. So we have provided support to the underprivileged businesses and people, and also to social economy enterprises. We have been providing loans amounting to about 1 billion Korean won. So we're building local networks in Korea and in the Korea metropolitan area, such as in Seoul and large cities, we are seeing lots of supports are concentrated around the metropolitan area. But I think the regional area actually needs more access to finance. So I'm thinking about how to pull those funds for the regional area. And we're also thinking about providing consultancy as well. So we are going to provide these services through a social cooperative and through some legal entities. So we have been doing these efforts for about a decade. And we are going to provide more expanded efforts. And since we have been facing the pandemic-19 situation, we've been thinking through, and I thought that we think that we have to continue this effort more actively because the pandemic is going to be staying for some time. And also we want to share this know-how to the newcomers in this field, and also provide training as well. As I've been providing training, I got to think that we shouldn't just promote this within the institutional framework only. I think we should make new things so that we can create new things out of the box. I think that we have to play our role in creating new opportunities and new ideas. And I think that we have to prepare social housing or pooled funds and shared economy sector. There's a lot of interest in social housing. So as we think about these options, we always have to think about what kind of legal framework we have to abide by. We have to create a safety net which has to be more strengthened further, and we have to make the underprivileged take on the job as in an autonomous effort. Otherwise, we cannot always rely on outside help. So we are working on these projects. And also I have talked about the mutual aid cooperatives or mutuals. So we are going to create a federation of those mutual aid cooperatives. And so maybe we could pool our efforts among different organizations to provide support to local or social economy enterprises. Local enterprises, social enterprises that are in regional areas, not in metropolitan area. We would like to help the small enterprises. So we are thinking about these options and opportunities. With the pandemic, this has been surfaced as a very important issue for us. And I think that building solidarity is very important in this respect. And I think that we all have to think about what kind of role we each have to take. And so we are building solidarity with the social economy sector workers as well. And also we have our own credit union. So we want to expand the social solidarity credit union. So we are doing this work together in cooperation with Reverend Song Kyung-jung as well. So Song Kyung-jung as well. So we want to give help to those who really need our help. And I think this is something that is to help people, not just to create money. Well, thank you very much.
입니다. 맨 마지막.
회장님, 예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So I've been talking about how you started off from the self-help groups in the different villages. And these organizations have been around for a while for the low-income groups in Korea for a long period of time. And so there are about 270 of these organizations around the country. 250, yes, she just corrected me. And so we have about 250 of these self-help groups. And so there are many residents and activists, and they have formed this kind of mutual aid network. So the second presenter is now going to be AVPN, Asia Venture Philanthropy Network. The Chief of Staff, Ms. Patsin Low, please go ahead with your presentation.
부탁드립니다. 10분입니다.
Patsin, you have 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And very delighted to be here today. Thank you, GSEF, as well, for organizing this session and having us here. Today, my presentation is going to be talking about a specific product that we had introduced, particularly looking at the needs of the organizations in the Asian region that were trying to rebuild and recover, particularly strengthening our communities in Asia after the challenges of the pandemic. I would like to share a presentation from my computer, and I want to confirm that everybody can see what is on my screen. Excellent. So what I wanted to do today is to talk a little bit about our AVPN Philanthropic Pooled Fund. But before I begin, I just want to give a very quick introduction about our organization. I mentioned earlier that we are Asia's largest social investment network. And to explain a little bit what that means, our organization represents a network of different funding organizations around this region, as well as global organizations that are mobilizing capital for impact in Asia. As you can see from what is on screen, they represent a wide diversity of organization types. We currently have over 600 members, and we are a growing network, really seeing incredible interest over the last 3 to 4 years. And we are excited today that our membership represents foundations, family wealth, corporations, impact funds, intermediaries, and even government-related organizations around the world. Together, they mobilize billions of capital, as well as incredible resources that come from human and intellectual talent that can support social organizations around the world to create more impact. What we had realized, especially after the pandemic, was that there were many organizations in our region, many of them supported by our members already in years past, but facing unique challenges after the pandemic. And we asked ourselves the question, how can social investment effectively support the long-term recovery in Asia? And long-term being the operative phrase, because we could see that there were many long-tailed challenges with deep social, economic, and development implications after the pandemic. And we needed to examine how could we transition the support of social and impact funding to these organizations, but at the same time, reduce the effect on the funding that were provided to relief programs that were already operating underway. Secondly, we also noticed that non-COVID related organizations, so in other words, organizations that are very important to the ongoing strengthening of the community and of the social impact sector, but may not have been directly engaged with COVID relief at the most acute moments when the crisis was at its peak. These organizations do still play very important roles in building resilience and recovery. And the support needs to go to more than just looking at primary healthcare or primary healthcare relief organizations, but also extending to other very important needs in our community, including, for example, as the previous presenter shared, livelihoods, and also in education, and also in other forms of support, like technology, like mental wellness, and so forth. Thirdly, while there was a lot of work undergoing in Asia around relief for COVID, there were many other important elements of social sector strengthening and social and solidarity strengthening, like innovation, like research, like infrastructure and capacity building, that was still very critical. And it was important for us to make sure that that kind of support does not go away in light of the funding that was going to more acute and immediate COVID relief needs. And so intellectual capital, as well as a network of partners, are just as important, if not more, when it comes to long-term recovery that these organizations can contribute to. And then last but not least, many social organizations were quite overwhelmed with all the various terms and conditions and restrictions and requirements that would come along with the COVID-specific funding support that were flooding into our region at a time when the crisis was at its peak, that they sometimes found themselves struggling to manage so many different conditions and restrictions among so many different funders. And that actually took away from the ability to strengthen their organization at large. And they were very much in need of what would be considered as unrestricted or general funding in order to ensure that their organizations can continue to grow. So to address these issues, we realized that as a social investment network, we could try to meet a few goals. We could, of course, want to complement the direct support of COVID-19 response and recovery, but we also want to strengthen non-COVID related contribution so that the overall social ecosystem can be resilient. Thirdly, it was really important for us to ensure that social organizations' capacity are able to continue to grow. And we want to do this through extending partnerships and a network of potential partners for these organizations. And then lastly, that we can actually add we can add value on top of what everybody else is doing. We don't only just want to bring repetitive or duplicated help. So in that context, what we did was we put together a theory of change. And we particularly, if I could draw your attention to the yellow box, realize that in order for us to support this type of development, especially in Southeast Asia, in markets like Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and Thailand, all of whom have been also trying to deal with the different waves of COVID as they've come through our region. In the yellow box, you can see that our theory of change was focused on a particularly interesting opportunity to create a pooled fund. And a pooled fund is important because it allows us to bring together different members of the social investment community to represent our membership, to work together and scale up the impact of what they can support so that we can make collaborative efforts towards supporting these organizations. With this fund, we'll be able to build up a pipeline of interesting organizations and solutions that can actually bring about longer term resilience and recovery building for this region. Through this fund, we will provide direct support to the initiatives that these organizations are doing and contribute to strengthening the access and delivery of healthcare, which is still very much needed. But in addition, we will want to be able to support and encourage the coming together of key stakeholders from different backgrounds and markets that can create collective impact that will extend beyond only just acute COVID-19 relief. So that if you could look at the green box now, we can help not only to achieve short-term outcomes of strengthening primary healthcare systems and COVID recovery efforts, we also can have long-term outcomes of collaboration that will bring us impact at scale. This is just a quick snapshot to show you where this pooled fund is operating in Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia. And the participating funders that have already joined us are also here on this screen. You can see that Bill and Melinda Gates, Chevron, J&J, and Macquarie, Sequoia Vitol Foundation. These are all global as well as active organizations in Asia. I'm mindful of time, so I will very quickly share with you a very high-level snapshot of the kinds of applications that we have received and what kind of needs have they expressed about what they would want to gain support in from this fund. You can see here that we were definitely trying to meet a need because there were 84 applications already that have come into this fund when we were really only looking to award anywhere from 4 to 6 different grantees. Now, across these organizations, they were representing a variety of needs and also introducing a variety of interventions into Asia. Yes, you can see that many of them are still very much involved in the PPE and COVID-related support, but also are looking at strengthening the healthcare infrastructure and also other related needs that extend from the pandemic. Here, I wanted to show you what were some of the top non-financial support needs that have been expressed by these applications. And you can see here on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen that the top 5 needs represented were staff training, access to networks, impact management, human resources, and operational management. Again, confirming our earlier hypothesis that actually organizational strengthening is just as important to these organizations as it is direct funding for acute COVID relief. And in my last few seconds, I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of who the first round of grantees are in Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand. They all are operating in underserved communities where they are supporting not only just immediate COVID relief, but also the extended services that require the strengthening of capability of healthcare workers, and also raising community awareness and improving community management solutions. We even have organizations that are operating at underserved areas, like for example, at the Thai-Myanmar border, supporting the refugee communities in these needs as well. So I will stop my presentation here, and I thank you all for your attention.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So due to the pandemic, a lot of the groups are now in crisis, but I'm sure that the AVPN has been able to help these groups and these people a great deal. Thank you very much for your introduction to your program and your product. Now let's go on to Sevilla. Let's invite Mr. Gianluca Casparini. The floor is yours.
Gianluca,
thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen as well, so that can you see my screen?
Yes, very well.
Okay, fantastic.
네,
Okay,
잘 보입니다.
so first of all, once again, thank you very much for having me here with you today. And I already heard quite a few interesting ideas and concepts from the presentations already gone. And now I'm just going to try to briefly explain who we are, and then I'm going to go on and let you know a little bit about our members' response to the pandemic. So FEBEA is the European Federation of Ethical and Alternative Banks and Financiers. So we are an international not-for-profit association, and our goal is to develop ethical and solidarity-based finance in Europe, as well as, of course, the social economy. And with our activities, there are mainly advocacy, communication, exchange, and participation of European citizens. Our members basically are based in 17 countries and incorporate 33 members. And we have a total assets of 30 billion euros, and we serve 700,000 clients in Europe and beyond. What's also interesting about our own membership structure is that aside from mainstream, let's say, banking institutions, so banks, we also have non-banking financial institutions, as well as other actors active in the social economy, such as foundations. Another thing that's important to stress is that while we are based in Europe and we mainly operate in Europe, as you can see from this map. Basically, we are also, some of our members are active also beyond the limits of Europe. We have members who are active in the Middle East, North Africa, Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and of course, Asia. And what basically makes us, bring us all together is the support, again, for the social economy and sustainable development in the countries. And so we are talking a lot about ethical finance. So I just would like to give you a brief overview of the principles of ethical finance. So first of all, of course, we place the stress on being at the service of European citizens. So the economy should be at the service of the citizens and not the other way around. We, of course, contribute to solidarity, social cohesion, sustainable development, as we believe are the key ingredients for a sustainable development. We pursue social impact as well as financial profit. What we mean by that is that we follow a so-called triple bottom line approach. What we mean by that is that alongside a financial return, we also stress the importance of having a social and or environmental impact in the activities of our members. So we mainly do not provide grants in terms of financial support without any financial return. But by and large, we provide loans and other financial instruments that are supposed to provide a long-term sustainability to the project and the entrepreneurs themselves. So we, of course, promote these social and environmental objectives by, for example, promoting projects that have a strong job creation component, especially social employment. What we mean by that is that we try to finance projects that can provide the job creation also for the most vulnerable people in a certain area. Again, sustainable development, we mean as sectors like renewable energies, organic farming, biodiversity, etc. And international solidarity and fair trade are other key ingredients for our own development. Another thing that I think it's important to stress at this point is the fact that despite this diversity, all these principles are upheld by all of our members, no matter where they are, because indeed the European context is quite varied and complex. And the final point I would like to mention here is the fact that another characteristic of this sustainable development that we promote is the stress on the local development. So there is a focus also on underdeveloped areas that maybe are facing, for example, depopulation or brain drain, as we say. So skilled individuals leave certain areas to pursue other opportunities elsewhere. Next, basically now we are going into the main response to the pandemic. So our members approached this pandemic head on, given the fact that it hit especially vulnerable people, because they were the most susceptible to the COVID pandemic in terms of job security, business opportunities, and so on. The first thing that ethical financial institutions did was to move their entire operations online in record time. What I mean by that is that usually the relationship between the potential beneficiary and our members mostly relates to the fact that there is a personal relationship with them. However, given the pandemic and the social distancing situation, we had to move operations online in order to continue operating. Also, keeping into consideration the fact that there was again the financial big strain on the financial fabric of society, they introduced a moratorium on loan payments in order to give entrepreneurs and people also more time to get on with their payments. And then related to that, so they had to deal with a large wave of requests to reschedule their payments. So there was an additional burden in terms of requests to their own operations, but they managed to do that without putting any additional costs to the beneficiaries. And then our members basically took advantage of, let's say, the online opportunities by exploiting platforms like crowdfunding and solidarity campaigns, as well as technical assistance that was tailored to each and every person that was asking for it. Solidarity initiatives that again try to provide some support to the beneficiaries that were activated. Then basic from the operational point of view, those were the main measures that were activated. On the other hand, also us as a network representing our members, we provided our own support by carrying out advocacy work at the national level, so that socioeconomic organizations were included in the COVID support and COVID relief measures for SMEs. And in terms of advocacy at the EU level, we advocated for the introduction of flexibility in the existing financial instruments that were supportive of social finance, in order to make them more tailored to our members' needs, given the scale of the challenge that was in front of us. And indeed, so far, the socioeconomic sector and our members have coped pretty well based on the scale of the challenge provided by COVID. And we have indeed in our website a report that collects several of those case studies, so that can provide a better overview and a more detailed overview of the measures that were carried out by our members. And I see that my time is up, so I'm just gonna conclude my presentation by thanking you for your attention. And just as a final information, we are happy to celebrate 20 years from the founding of our own federation. And we are welcoming you to our own channels if you want to learn more about what we do, and especially about our members and what they do as well. Thank you very much for your attention, and I leave the floor to the moderator. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Gianluca Casparini from Sevilla has introduced the organization, and we could see how how Sevilla has helped those underprivileged in the pandemic. And I also like to congratulate the 20th anniversary as well. Next, Grameen Bank.
발표해 주시기 바랍니다. 예.
Hello, everyone, and I'm very
Philip, the floor is yours.
Okay, I will share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, so wait a second, I need to adapt. Oh, sorry, there's a problem. Can you see the screen, or I cannot?
예, 잘 보입니다.
Yes, we see your screen very well.
Oh, okay, okay, very good. So I'm just rapidly will introduce the Foundation Grameen Crédit Agricole. It's a foundation that was set up in 2008 by, as I mentioned to you, the Grameen Trust from Bangladesh, and I don't think I have to introduce them to you. I mean, they are very well known with Professor Mohamed Yunus, and Groupe Crédit Agricole, which is one of the largest old cooperative bank that have been here in France and other countries for 200 years. Basically, what we do support microfinance organization and social business enterprises. Here you have the map. I mean, we do work in Asia, but we do work also in Africa, Central Asia, and Europe and the Middle East. We basically provide either debt or equity or guarantees to our partners. Right now, we are working in 37 countries. We do have a strong focus on Africa, which represents more than 40% of our investment. And we serve right now, as you see the figures, 87 organizations. In microfinance, we work mainly with smaller size institutions. I mean, meaning to say that or middle size, managing less than $100 million in their portfolio. We also do provide technical assistance missions. We coordinate funding we received from the French Development Agency, from the Swedish International Development Agency, the Swiss, the Luxembourg government, with different projects. We do work on issues of financial inclusion for refugees. For example, in Uganda, we work on issues of how to support farmers in the value chain, financement, and so on. Right now, we have 100 million euros under management, and the total partners are reaching more than 7 million people. 73% are women, and 85% are in rural areas. And it's the two cultures of the funders, which is to support both farmers and women. I'm going to share with you, the studies we've conducted with two other organizations called ADA and Impulse. Impulse is based in France, in Belgium, sorry, and ADA in Luxembourg. We set up a COVID-19 observatory to understand what is the situation for our partners and how they have been affected by the crisis. We have published more than 10 articles. They are all available on our website. What I'm going to share here is the latest study we conducted with figures from July this year, representing 78 microfinance institutions from Central Asia, Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, MENA region, and Asia. We also published, and you have here the pictures, a global study on what has been the impact on the crisis and what has been over the year, last year. So it was a kind of summary about all the research we did in 2020. When the crisis hit, we had three main fears regarding our partners, microfinance institution partners. It was the issues of liquidity crisis, the potential increase in credit risk, and the issues of solvency. So we're going to look at what have been the main results here and where we stand at this level. The liquidity crisis has been, I would say, globally avoided. As it was mentioned by the person from Sevilla, most of our organization, we provided moratorium to our partners. In our case, we had 39% of our partners who made a request for extension of their moratorium for their loans. We were quite surprised. We were expecting much more, but all of them that applied got it. So in fact, it's true that the liquidity level has been pretty good, meaning to say that most of them also have stopped providing for meantime some loans, and so that would explain the prudence they had, the level of liquidity, which was pretty good. Most of the loan the extension have been, as you see, around 6 months, but some of them reached 12 months or even 24 months. If you look, however, on the operational context and where we stand now, what is clear is that the MFIs have been able to adapt very quickly to the crisis. They have implemented quite a lot of measures for sanitary issues, client relationship protections. And as you see on the graph on the left, we see that in most of the case, activities have been gradually resumed or even are completely resumed compared to the crisis. There is one issue which is in Asia, where we see that it's not so much the case. It's mainly due to two countries, which was India, and Myanmar. But Myanmar is also, of course, linked to the political context. What is clear, however, is that in all the cases, the main impact of the crisis has been the increase of the what we call the PAR, meaning the portfolio at risk. So the percentage of loans that have delayed in repayment. So it has increased, and we will see later on in which proportion. And then, of course, because of that, they had to do some provisions. So the profitability of the structure has been reduced quite a lot, and also because there was a reduction in the outstanding loans. So we see that's the main so far the main impact. If we look in terms of activities, we were quite interesting to understand how the activity has resumed in the first semester. What we see is that it varies quite a lot depending again on the regions and the area. The region that has resumed quite rapidly is really East and Europe and East Asia countries. Again, Asia is still quite impacted as far as we can see, and Africa is also quite impacted. In Africa, it's mainly due to one country, Uganda, which has they had a new lockdown and so on, so the businesses have been quite affected. When we see that the target is not met, it's mainly due to the low demand. I mean, it's clear that some of the people either close, unfortunately, the business, or they are not eager to get a higher or bigger level of loan. And also is the institution are managing on a different way the risk at their level. When we see that it has exceeded in some cases, it's mainly due to the fact that people are requesting to have larger loans, and there is a strong demand on that level. As I mentioned to you, the credit risk has increased. We still see that there has been an excellent repayment rate in Europe, but we see that in some other countries, again Asia and also a little bit of Africa and the MENA region, the repayment is rather between 50 and 70%, or even less than 50%. But the critical repayment, meaning to say below 70%, was only in 12 MFIs, half of them being in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the graph below show you what is the type of moratorium that were provided by the MFIs to their clients. And what we see here is that, again, if you look at the different countries and contexts, and the red is that the moratorium have been over, but then because of the people were not able to pay back yet, it come back to what we call the portfolio at risk. But again, it's the European countries that are managing at this level the best the situation. Of course, we do know that it has some impact on the profitability of the institution, which is quite challenging for the coming months and coming years. And of course, what we see is that the PAR is much higher than the pre-crisis years for 58% of the MFI, and it's usually higher between 0 and 25%. And the increase of the write-off is then when you just read off the loans from your book, has been also the concern for 38%. But in most of the case, it didn't double, so it means that the impact is pretty fair. What we see here also is that in terms of profitability, is that there's no, which is pretty good, there's no pressure on at this stage on equity, and so most of the MFIs still remain profitable. Only 6 have a strong impact on their capitalization level. So as a conclusion, what we can say is that first, it's clear that the impact of the crisis on the microfinance sectors varies quite a lot according to the region and the period. We saw that, for example, for quite a while, Asia was quite well, doing pretty well. And then, of course, there has been very strong crisis in India. We have the case of Myanmar and so on. So there's been quite a lot of differences. Globally, at this stage, what we see in the report is that 47% of the MFIs have no more operational issues. So it's pretty good. So they are back to their activities. But what is clear is that the most visible impact of the crisis is the low disbursement level, the persistent high credit risk, and the significant impact on some of the profitability. But again, it varies a lot according to the countries, to the region, and sometimes the type of organization. We have globally the pictures that the sectors has been rather resilient and has been able to adapt rather rapidly and with a good adaptation. And the governance was key. I mean, the capacity the actors has to do it with this was very important. And what we saw is that the problematic cases that we have today were already problematic before. So the impact, of course, make it much more difficult for them. But so it was nothing really new. What was also a very good side is that there was a very good coordination between investors, that they were very flexible. They had a lot of discussion among themselves. They provide a lot of informal agreement and coordinate their technical assistance support for their program. So one of the challenge ahead, what is clear is that in the microfinance sectors, we saw that there was the crisis has a big impact in the digitalization projects, in the sense that the digitalization was already on the desk, on the discussion with the MFIs, but they realized that it was necessary to do it much more because, of course, it was a better way to reach the clients. I mean, it helped them not necessarily to meet them always physically and so on, which was quite important. It was quite interesting to see that if you look at the sector that was the less affected, is the agricultural financing that has been perceived during the crisis as less impacted and less risky. And so there was quite a lot of institutions that they say that they will do more into that field, which is something that we still don't know exactly if now is something that is happening and if we have more support for the agricultural sectors that before was perceived as riskier. Clearly, information sharing analysis remain key. I think it's true at all levels because the only way for us to have a better understanding and to be able to take the proper response to the need. The close coordination with the main stakeholder has proven to be extremely efficient. And it's very interesting to see that, for example, what is happening right now in Myanmar with the crisis is that what we have learned in terms of collaboration among our partners and investors is used now to face the particular situation of Myanmar, which is not only just linked to the crisis. And to finish, I think one of the main issues now is because we saw that some of the MFIs are rather prudent in delivering new financial services to the clients, is how they're going to deal with a new excluded person affected by the crisis, and we know there are quite a lot. And so we have to be sure that, I mean, they will remain strong in their social missions and be able to serve the people that deserve it. And I will conclude it here, and thank you for the time and your attention.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So it's one of the biggest success stories when it comes to social finance. And so you have heard from the Grameen example. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And I think you have also given us a lot of challenges that we need to think about and a lot of food for thought. So last but not least, I would like to now give the microphone to Sylvia Chavon, Development Program Coordinator of ICA. Sylvia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you again for the invitation. I will start sharing my screen so that you can all see that. Can you see the screen? Perfect. So what I would like to briefly present to you today is a specific tool that the International Cooperative Alliance is developing, which is the Global Cooperative Impact Fund. Actually, is a tool that we started developing not for this specific crisis, but even before. But of course, it assumes even more important scope right now because of the crisis. First, few words on the ICA. So we are not actually a financial organization or an investment network. We are pretty old, I would say, a non-governmental organization. We have been founded in 1895. And we are the only organization that at global level unites, represents, and serve the cooperative movement. We are present in all regions. We have today over 300 member organizations, which are mainly federation or apex organizations in more than 110 countries. As I said, we cover a bit all regions. We have also different regional offices. The global office is based here in Belgium, together with the European office. And then we have an African office based in Kenya, an office for Asia Pacific based in New Delhi, India, and then one for the Americas that is based in Costa Rica. And we represent cooperatives from all different sectors. I will be happy later on to discuss a bit more on the impact of this crisis on the cooperative movement. But as I said, what I would like to focus my presentation on is the specific tool we are developing. So first of all, why a fund for cooperatives? And I need to say maybe only for cooperatives, because the GCI fund will have as beneficiaries only cooperatives. Because we understood even more in this crisis, but also before, the resilience of the cooperative business model as one of the strategies for really being able to face similar economic crisis and really be able to reach a sustainable economic growth. Cooperatives are locally anchored, so really they are local agents of capital accumulation, and they really have an impact also on the community where they are based. They provide work opportunity to the 10% of the employed population, which is a quite interesting number. But despite all that, we understood that the lack of funding is still one of the main obstacles for the development of cooperatives. They have a specific business model that let's call it regular banks not always understand. And they are not always willing to take risks, specifically in the long term, for this specific model. So this is why we think a fund that has really the ability to focus on cooperatives is needed. Based on field missions and on, of course, dialogue with our members, we try to understand the needs of the movement from a financial instrument. And what we realize is that, first of all, the fund needs to have a cooperative DNA. So really needs to be an instrument created and supported by cooperatives for cooperatives. So being able to really understand the model and the needs of the model. Then, of course, cooperatives, they don't need only a financial instrument, but also technical assistance. So I will show you later on a different level of technical assistance that we are developing to support them along the way. And they don't need only, big tickets as other funds are at the moment providing, but actually they rather need small tickets, let's say starting from 300, 500,000 to really answer their needs, specifically and mainly for small cooperatives in remote areas. And finally, the needs that at the moment are unmet are related to long-term loans and long-term support, because regular banks, they maybe try to support them on the short run, but they are not always willing to support them and to take the risk for the long runs. So these are a bit the needs that we understood and we try to answer with the Global Cooperative Impact Fund. How, first of all, as I said, we are trying really to create a cooperative vehicle from A to Z. So a cooperative fund by cooperative for cooperatives. We want this fund to be a bottom-up initiative. And this is why we have ICA as promoter, which can guarantee a cooperative DNA of this fund. But of course, as I said before, ICA is not financial institutions. We don't have the technical technical capacity to run a fund ourselves. So we partner with Impulse, that I think the colleague Philip mentioned before also in his presentation. That is a cooperative investment management company specialized in investing into impact companies and into cooperatives. In, let's say, very schematic way, what this fund would like to propose. First of all, let me say that is not launched yet. We are in the final phase of the fundraising, but what we aim is to develop a fund of to at least $50 million that is able to guarantee low ticket to complement fund that already exists at the moment that maybe have higher tickets. So we will propose tickets from 300,000 to 3 million, more or less, covering long-term support. And we will target cooperatives or directly for the cooperatives that are big enough to be able to absorb the investment, or via financial intermediaries, because we really want to reach also smaller cooperatives that maybe otherwise would not be able to reach the fund directly. Even if we go via financial intermediaries, the final beneficiaries should only be cooperatives with no limitation of sectors for the moment. And as I said, and as the name of the fund said, the fund will be global, but we have to start somewhere. We cannot start from all countries at the same time. So first, a priority will be given to Sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, together with the financial support, we will also, as I said before, provide technical assistance. So we will have a first phase of pre-investment TA, where we want really to make cooperatives investment ready. So we really, as I said before, want to reach also smaller cooperatives that otherwise will never be able to apply for any fund. So we will support them with TA, with seed money, with institutional reinforcement. We will support local federation and apex organization to create some cooperative ecosystems. We really create an enabling environment for cooperatives to grow. Then, of course, we will support them with the requested financial tool and with loans, mainly senior and subordinated debt, so long-term support. And together, at the same time, we will continue the technical assistance that will be tailored for the specific needs of the beneficiaries, can be governance, on financial literature, on digitalization, on whatever they need. And then we will continue supporting them even after the loans, to make sure that they will be able to scale up, to really use the investment to grow, and to indeed support also the community around, and to continue reaching their goals. So this is a bit the idea of the fund, and I will stop here, and I'm happy to answer your question later on, to go a bit more into the specific. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다.
Well, thank you very much, Sylvia.
특별히 ICA 콩그레스가
So the ICA Congress is going to be held in Korea, Seoul, Korea, 2 months later from today. It's going to be the largest cooperative Congress. It's going to commemorate the 125th anniversary as well. So I hope that you could encourage us and support us for a successful event. And if you can participate, I would like to invite you to actively participate the forum.
So that brings us to the end of the presentations. Thank you to all the speakers. So look, first of all, let's give each other a big round of applause to all the presenters. So while I was listening to the presentations, I got the feeling that the entire humanity is facing the worst pandemic ever. And in order to overcome this worst crisis, humanity and the social finance is playing a very important role in a variety of different ways. And so I see hope. I see light at the end of the tunnel. And so it's now time for us to have a panel discussion. So just to guide you through the discussion, well, there are people listening to YouTube or watching the live streaming. So you can use the chat box on Zoom, or if you have any comments, you can also leave the comments in the chat room as well. So let me just give you a question to all the speakers. So I think, well, yes, this is a question for all the speakers at the GSEF 2021. There are all different forms of social economy organizations. There are village enterprises, there are social enterprises, there are a variety of different social economy players. So you have various social enterprises and you also have different alliances. So how can these organizations come up with solutions on the local level in response to global crises? So I suppose for us working in the social finance area, we have a very good understanding of the groups on the ground. And so perhaps you can give the activists some form of an advice or insight. What can they do on the ground, on the local level, to overcome this global crisis? So I'm just going to give each speaker maybe 1 or just 2 minutes. Perhaps share with us your thoughts on this question. So who would like to go first? Maybe Yumi, would you like to go first? So I have not been working with social finance for a long period of time. So perhaps I might have a third-person perspective, but I think in Korea we are so used to the established institutions, and so many groups are so used to getting a grant or a support, and so many groups try to solve crisis by getting support, receiving support. And so rather, if the groups had focused a little bit more on coordinating among themselves and helping each other, then we may have done a better job. So it's a bit of a dilemma. Sometimes I think, are laws really that important? Are the legal institutions really helping us in this time and age? And so I have been thinking about this issue for a long period of time. And so instead, I think we need more small groups, and these small groups have to be active on the grassroots level, on the ground. And so they have to become more active. And perhaps the local residents can coordinate a little bit more with the local council members. And when it comes to safety net, we have to make them ourselves. We can't expect the establishment to make everything for us. So those kind of social economy actors have to come together in a more close-knit way. And I also want to play my role to make that possible. Thank you very much. So she has talked about self-help and the autonomous and independent activities on grassroots level, and not individual, but in solidarity, activities in solidarity. And also she has talked about the need to be rooted in the local communities and to come up with a more close-knit and closely tight tightly knit network of different groups. And she has also talked about how those kind of activities may perhaps lead to legal and institutional change later on. Thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Gianluca Casparini.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I would say that I agree with Yumi's approach in the sense that I believe that there should be a bottom-up approach to solving this issue, especially since usually these are local problems and the people who are facing them are the best ones to provide feedback and also think about potential solutions to actually solve them. So my idea also, of course, refers not only to this specific crisis, but also to how many social economy actors have seen their own birth. So they came from civil society groups that put themselves together, pool resources, knowledge, and put their own word outside for their own needs, and then came up with the solution that was, in some cases, also again, cooperatives, financial institutions that cater to their own needs. So my first advice would be indeed to organize locally. And probably the second one would be for these individuals and groups to actually try to find like-minded groups that are in the regions so that they can reach the critical mass, that they can be heard and can move this solution from the local level to the regional level, so that by pooling resources together and having a network approach, it's a good way for individuals to reach the impact that they would like to have. So I completely agree with Yumi.
예, 고맙습니다.
Well, thank you very much. So we begin from local, but then we bring the network, we build a network together to build a larger network, to have a bigger impact across a wider area. So if we take a step further, maybe we could build a global network just as we're doing today and build solidarity together, starting from local and reaching to global level as well. So we have a word coined in Korea called glocal that combines the local and global. Thank you very much.
From Paris, we have from Grameen Bank, Mr. Philippe Guichandu. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I fully agree with what has been said, and especially from Gianluca, related to the need to, at one stage, be stronger, being together through a network. Before working for the Foundation Grameen Crédit Agricole, I was the first CEO of the European Microfinance Network. So I really strongly believe in networks and in their capacity to support initiatives locally and to make it heard at the level of the politician through advocacy work and so on. But what I want to say, and I think that what we learned from this is I think it's very important to that at the local level, first there is this willingness to share information and to really be able to share what is happening on the ground. There has been quite a lot of interesting studies also put at the level of the clients, at least in the microfinance sectors, where we try to understand what was the problem that they were facing. And you cannot find solutions if you don't have the information. So I think that we need to really make efforts to have a complete global analysis about what is happening with the people we are working with in order to provide them, in order later on to be able at our level as actors in this field to provide the right services, to adapt the services we have to the people we serve. And another point is also, I believe, is that it's very good, at least as financial actors, to be able to provide financial services through debt, equity, whatever. But I also believe that if we really want to reach really excluded people, we need to have a mixed approach with support on providing some TA support to strengthen the capacity of the actors locally to face the studies. And financial is good, But if you don't provide this type of support to improve their services, to help them to go for new type of product, new type of services, and that's required usually subsidies coming from either donors, whatever, then I think we're going to miss something. And I think that at that level, we do have a responsibility to try to have this double approach to also strengthen the actors at the local level. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you. Yes, you've talked about the information sharing and also working with our partners and our clients, so to speak. And so information sharing and sharing of the research are important, and only then can we come up with some solutions. And you talked about how financial support is needed, but also how the actors have to be able to build their capacity so that they're able to help themselves, so to speak. I think that's my understanding of what you have said. So, Patsian, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you very much. And I have to say I'm in very high agreement with what all of our panelists have already mentioned, because I feel that the need for collaboration and partnership certainly will help us advance at a local level. But I'd like to further reinforce that the partnership isn't only just among social organizations. It should also include other segments of the social and solidarity economy, including the funders, including the investors, including businesses that are all part of the ecosystem, which can help us achieve success. Because what we are seeing at a local level is that the ecosystem approach is the only way to move ahead. It is not only civil society organizations that are doing the hard work. You also have the opportunity to engage with the other parts of the local ecosystem to ensure that the right kinds of resources are going to the right needs, to ensure that there is no duplication of one foundation or another foundation trying to fund the same thing, which we know at a local level can sometimes happen. And so to also support Philippe's point that there is non-financial assistance that is needed, the financial assistance part also can benefit from working as a network and actually share information with each other and work together so that they can complement the kind of funding support that they are offering. Thank you very much.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. So, Sia has mentioned about the collaboration and partnership, the importance of them. And collaboration should not happen only among the social enterprises, but also we should involve other agents and actors such as those in the ecosystem. So we need to build the ecosystem and take in all the stakeholders who would be contributing to expanding the partnership. And with this, a new change can be made. So that's how I understand. Thank you very much.
Sylvia.
Sylvia, would you like to now go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I think that the previous speakers almost cover everything, and I'm fully in agreement with everything that has been said. Maybe a small step forward on what has been said in terms of collaboration and partnership that I also think is crucial, not only with the social solidarity economy actors, but also other actors. I will include also governments and institutional actors to make sure that they really, in their solutions, particularly in this time of crisis, they will include all social solidarity economy actors, because at least from a cooperative point of view, we have seen that in this period, not always this was the case. There was sometimes a lack of information or not fully taken in consideration, for instance, the cooperative business model, and this created some issues for our members. So this for sure is something that need to be improved. And then this has been already said, but I really strongly believe in the importance also of indeed act locally, act also not only in the metropolitan areas, but also in the remote areas, and really involve also the community around, so that while we support business, we also support families and communities at a more, let's say, inclusive way. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다. 우리 실비아.
Thank you very much. So Sylvia has also talked about cooperating and forming networks, collaborating. And yes, you have also emphasized the need to work with stakeholders like governments and different institutions. Yes, thank you for your important input. So listening to these comments, I feel that you have come up with the different tasks and challenges based on your experience. And so they were very interesting input.
Now, if you have any questions among the panelists, maybe we could have spend this moment for the Q&A session among the panelists. So if you have any questions to other speakers, please ask your questions. And I would like to ask you to be brief due to time constraints. Do you have any questions amongst yourself? Or if you like to provide any comments amongst yourself? Yes, I do have one. I have a question to Sylvia of ICA. You have talked about the Global Cooperative Impact Fund. I'd like if you could if you could elaborate on that. How do you pull the fund, and how and who do you target? Do you target the ICA members across the world, or do you focus your investment on specific persons or organizations? Can you answer the question, or do you have any questions, Sylvia? Could you answer the question, Sylvia?
Yes, sorry, I was listening to the translation. Yes, so first of all, as I said before, the fund has not been launched yet, but everything is ready. We are at the final phase of the fundraising, and we hope to be able to launch it in 2022. The fund has the full political support of the European Commission. As you know, ICA had just finished now in August a very long 5.5-year framework partnership agreement with the European Commission. So the fund has been developed through their help. And of course, we are then also gathering investment from other actors. And this includes the cooperative movement for sure, because we want cooperatives to be part of the investors, to have a really fund made by cooperatives for cooperatives. And then, of course, we are in the discussion also with other DFIs. In terms of beneficiaries, as I said before, the only beneficiaries of the fund will be cooperatives that could be targeted directly or indirectly via financial intermediaries. But the final beneficiaries will be only cooperatives. They don't need to be ICA members. Of course, this is could be of course, we will rely, let's say, on the ICA network also for the pipeline, but this is not an exclusive criteria. So the important thing is that they will be cooperatives, and they will, of course, answer specific criteria for the pipeline, but they don't need to be ICA members. And I will be happy. I will share my email here on the chat. So if then you have further questions or you want more information on the fund, I will be happy to answer you also later on. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다.
네, 고맙습니다.
예.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else would like to ask a question or contribute a comment to one another?
I wanted to just quickly raise a point to the panel, and I will be very happy to hear their feedback on this.
예.
I'd like to find out what is the perspective of the panel when we are talking about capacity building and organization strengthening and the kind of support that is provided for that from the funding community. The reason I ask this is because certainly after COVID has hit its peak, we are seeing much of the programming funding that is emerging, whether it's grant funding or investment funding, coming in the form of specific programmatic funding needs. But we see very limited amount of general or unrestricted funding that can help organizations grow. What is the panel's view about how this is evolving for Asia, but also for the rest of the world? That is my question. Thank you very much.
예, 고맙습니다. 혹시 필립 씨 좀
Thank you for your question. Perhaps Philip, yes, were you waiting to answer the question?
Yes, I wish I could be optimistic, but I'm not sure that the reality is will be in that sense. I think it's clear that more and more I think that the global issues of strengthening partners, of capacity building is key, is pretty well understood by most of the funders as well. But I get the feeling that they are still too much in the logic of program, having their own strategy and so on. And so we are more in the way of call for tenders where they have their specific activities and where the global pictures is not so much always taken into account. And it's true that we do face also some issues to have access to funding that will be used for with a global approach on technical assistance or capacity building. We are just releasing next week a specific document on our experience on technical assistance, in which we really promote the ideas to have a global approach, which is not focusing just on specific needs, but on a more global approach to respond to the need of the different actors in the field. And I'm not sure that it will be completely heard by funders and different activities. So I wish I could be a little bit more optimistic.
Thank you. We hope that they're in the audience now and they're listening to this.
예, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gianluca Gasparini, do you have any comments or questions?
I just we are not operating in Asia, so maybe my feedback won't be very useful, but I still think that providing technical assistance should be absolutely paired with any type of financial support, especially when we're talking about the most vulnerable people, because several times they receive money and then they don't have the capacities to put it into good use. And this could also lead to organizational failure, because we have seen many times that these organizations become, let's say, flooded with money, and this can lead to mismanagement and to issues also with the repayments, and also can foster in some cases corruption and so on. So I would say that it's a very delicate issue that should be discussed not only with the funders, let's say the government funders, but also should be an ongoing dialogue between the, let's say, the top-down approach. So we provide you money to provide the technical assistance, but also with the financial intermediaries themselves. So there should be a dialogue between the government, the financial institutions, and the beneficiaries, so that they can coordinate to provide the best type of technical assistance and the most tailored one to the needs of the beneficiary and the financier.
예, 고맙습니다. 자, 혹시 지금
Thank you very much. So there are many people participating in the discussion. So perhaps we can entertain one last question due to the time constraint. So I think we can perhaps entertain the last question, or it could also be a question.
자, 우리 없으시면
If not,
제가 이제 오늘 토론회를 진행하면서
I would just like to say that whilst moderating the session, I was able to learn quite a lot. And we are going through a lot of difficulties, but the social finance can and is playing a very important role. And I would just like to reaffirm, I was able to reaffirm that despite the difficulties in the world, if we are able to forge solidarity and cooperate with one another, and if you're able to work together, then we can really create new hope. And so, yes, I was also able to find hope whilst moderating this session. So I look forward to continued exchanges and information. And you have also talked about the need for collaboration and cooperation. We are living in a financial capitalist world, and it seems that politics have the most power, but what seems to rule the world, in fact, is actually the financial industry. And so social finance seeks to bring about a more equitable world, more inclusive world. It's not about exploitation. So there was a mention by, was it Philip and Gianluca? You talked about the need to work with their partners and clients. So our clients, our partners are the people who are in poverty, who are vulnerable. And our partners and clients are those people who seek for a better and inclusive world. So having said that, I hope that the GSEF has provided us with this opportunity to hold this session. So hopefully with this opportunity, we'll have more collaboration and cooperation in the future. So I hope that the GSEF will also play a bigger role going forward. And I would like to thank all the comrades in the area of social finance for being here with us today. And so hopefully we'll be able to continue with this kind of partnership and collaboration going forward. So last but not least, I would just like to ask the speakers, I'm just going to give you 1 single minute and you can give us your closing final words. So like I said, please give us a message of hope amidst this difficulty.
저희는 사실 대면 금융이고 사람을 만나야 되는
Well,
금융.
we're doing in-person finance. We had been doing in-person finance, but because of the contactless communication, I've been quite depressed. But now I have seen a glimmer of hope, so I'd like to thank you. Also, we have a member who is at a very small village, and they have got about revenue of 1 billion Korean won, and they have made very good performance. So I think that gives us a lot of hope again. So in this very difficult period, we can achieve many things further on. So as I listened to the conversation, I think we have to build networks and cooperate and communicate with each other to build a better outcome. So I think that we can meet together again next time. Thank you very much.
자, 우리 Gianluca 씨.
Gianluca, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So first of all, once again, thank you very much for inviting us here, and I was again uplifted as well by the interventions of the other panelists. And indeed, I think that what we have discovered in this discussion was that we might have seen some very big forces pushing us down, but we have all together, if we pull our resources together, we have the power to overcome a pandemic, an unfair financial system, and anything. So the idea is just to keep cooperating and to build bridges rather than building walls. Thank you very much.
자, 우리 필립.
Philip?
Yes, I want to be also quite optimistic in the sense that we saw, at least in the microfinance sectors and with the social business enterprise, that they have been very resilient and that they have been able to really cope, act rapidly, take the right decision. Of course, the crisis is still not over. I mean, we still have to look at the way it's going to work out. But I think that this resilience is really prove really that these sectors, like the more mainstream sectors, has the capacity to answer to the needs of the people that are excluded from financial services and from social services. And the resilience, I think, has proven that we can build, based on this, strong sectors. And I think that the collaboration of all of us and all the stakeholders at the same time is extremely, extremely important. So yes, we can be optimistic.
네, 고맙습니다.
Thank you. Patsian?
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all the panelists for being very inspiring today. I think my message is that we all talked about the importance of networks. We all talked about the importance of partnership. And while we may be facing challenges because of the pandemic, and we now have to be contactless, we can also take hope that, for example, our carbon footprint will be lower because we are now contactless. And I think these are just examples of how, despite all the challenges, the social and solidarity economy is continuing to grow and building bridges, building networks with new actors. And I think this is what's exciting for me today when I see everybody on the panel as well. So I have hope that we can continue this spirit and continue to grow our work in this sector too. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다. 자, 우리
Thank you very much. Now, Sylvia from ICA.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this interesting session. And indeed, it was a pleasure to see that we all agree on the same basis. So this is already a very good start. I think that to be positive and optimistic, we could say that we could see this crisis also as an opportunity to change it, to improve, of course, the economy, try to really focus on sustainable economic growth. And I think indeed social and solidarity economy actors in this could be crucial because of their resilience, because of their impact on the community. And we have seen it also during this crisis. Of course, everyone has been impacted, but the importance is how actors have been reacted and faced this crisis. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다. 지금 이 자리에 많은
Thank you. So we have many social economy actors from various different countries. And I was not able to introduce all the participants due to the time constraints, but I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And so inclusive, a more warm, a more equitable society can really be brought about if we cooperate with one another in the social economy area. And social finance, networking, partnerships and cooperation needs to be evolved and upgraded further. And I hope that we will be able to attain our goals. Thank you everyone for being here. That brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.